Hi, this is Abraham Boche, and this is episode 11 of Small Talk with Lila Hart.
I'm super excited for this episode because I have my homie Abraham with me today, and he's a super funny comedian with hella funny stories. We went to do stand-up together at the show, and we had like a 45-hour-long car ride there, and I got to learn about him. I was like, you have to be on my show. So Abraham, how's your week been?
Well, my week has been great, other than the fact I got rolled up on by a gangster in East LA the other day, and he pulled a gun out on me. Why is that funny?
Other than that.
I mean, and supposedly this gangster's name, I found later, his name is Assassin. And I was like, really, bro? In a bright red Durango? Like, that's not being discreet at all, Assassin. So I'm sitting at the park waiting for my buddy, right? And I'm having a torta there. I'm having my breakfast at the park, right? And I didn't know, but this park is actually known for gangs going there and shooting people and taking people out of there. So I'm sitting there having my torta, and I hear some guy roll up, and I have my black hoodie on with my Dia de los Muertos skull on it with different beautiful colors, right? So I'm sitting there eating my torta, and he pulls up. He's like, "Hey, where you from?" And I'm like, "I'm waiting for my homie." "Who's your homie?" And I point to the building. "He lives right there." "Oh, but where you from?" I'm like, "Hey." So I took my hoodie off and I turned to face him, and I don't know whether he was like, "Is this guy Mexican or Arabian?" So he took a look at me and he drove off. So now, what scared me the most was when he drove off, because I was like, what if he wasn't satisfied with this, him hitting me up, and he's gonna come back around? So I watched him drive, and as soon as I seen that he drove off, I was able to relax. But can you imagine? I seriously thought he was gonna come back around and be like, "Hey, let's try this again." "Where you from?" I said. "That's it." Hey, bro, my story's not gonna change, bro. I'm not a gangbanger, but if you really need to know, I'm from Mexico.
Well, I'm so glad that you're okay.
Thank you.
It sounds like it's been one hell of a week so far.
It started out pretty crazy.
That's pretty nuts.
And the 8 years that I lived in Los Angeles, that's never happened to me. Like, I purposely wear colorful clothes, so when the police or gang members see me, they're like, "Oh, he's not a cholo." Like, right, I'm like the designated cholo hipster. Like, look, I got pink on my shirt, officer. Like, what do you want?
So you're from Mexico.
I'm from Mexico. I came here when I was 7 years old, and moved to Los Angeles about 8 years ago for work.
And how long have you been doing stand-up?
Wow, I started doing stand-up maybe about 6 years off and on, and dude, I love it. It's great.
What got you into doing stand-up?
That's a good story you asked. Thank you for asking. My brother Steven Olmos is also a comedian, and he was doing. Oh, geez, Louise, it was my phone. Sorry about that. I should have answered it. See who's calling me. My brother Steven Olmos was doing radio in Fresno. He had the #1 radio station back then. He went by Chubbs because he was like 300 pounds. No, seriously, and. Gabriel Iglesias came to his radio show in the morning as a guest, and my brother told him, "Hey, I want to do radio." Long story short, Gabriel hooked him up with this gentleman named Richard Villa, and boom, it just was history from there. My brother started doing comedy. He came to live with me in Los Angeles, and I started booking his shows. And he was like, "Hey, brother, you should do comedy." And I was like, "Nah, that's not for me." Mind you, all my years in high school and college were, theater, play production and all that good stuff. So it was definitely in my blood, but I just wasn't me. I didn't see myself doing that. So one day they put me on a show in Newport Beach.
You hosted the show?
I hosted the show. I hosted the show, and there's a gentleman named Chavago Blea, and he had just gotten on Gabriel Iglesias' Comedy Revolution, Stand-Up Comedy Revolution. And they were like, "Abraham, host for us." And at first I was like, no. They asked me like 10 times, and then I was like, you know what? If I tell them no, they're probably never gonna ask me again.
Right.
So I tied my balls up, bam, and I got on stage. I was terrified. As a matter of fact, I was petrified. And I got on stage, and nobody was paying any attention to me because I had zero jokes, right? So the guy, the host, the party stands up and he says, everybody shut the fuck up. So he got everybody's attention for me. And I froze even more. I was like, I don't even know what to say. I said something stupid about some things some girl had on her head that looked like a penis, like a dog penis. So anyhow, I brought the first comedian on stage and he goes, now was that the scariest cholo you've ever seen or what? I was so angry, I was so mad that night I birthed a few jokes. I told my brother, hey bro, I came up with these jokes. He was like, bro, those are funny. Say them on the next show. I was like, what, I have to do this again? So needless to say, they said that the third time was a charm, so I did it the third time, and sure enough, I got bit by the bug of, you know, making people laugh, and here I am, 6 years later.
Okay, awesome. I love that story. That's great.
Thank you.
Third time is the charm.
It was a charm.
Zhivago's really cool. He judged one of my roasts in Temecula. He's a really nice guy. He's hilarious.
Zhivago's hilarious. He's always making fun of me. Like, he will not stop at making fun of you. Matter of fact, yeah, let me just not even go there. He is a funny guy. Very funny guy.
Looks like Mitch Hedberg.
Yeah, he looks like Jesus Christ. That's what he looks like. He looks like white Jesus.
So we met at the Comedy Store. I mean, I've always seen you at Kill Tony. That's when I see you all the time.
Yes.
Every Monday night, and so both of us were both former tweakers. Well, Adderall. You did meth. I did Adderall.
For sure. Yeah. I did the Pookie. For those of you that know the Pookie.
But we're sober now. High five.
Super sober. 12 years sober. A few times relapsed, but hey, but when I relapse, my kitchen gets clean, my toilet, my refrigerator, everything gets cleaned. So, yeah, and then I pluck my eyebrows a little bit, but that's about it.
Well, you had this really great story. You're talking about building a fence. I want you to tell us.
Oh my gosh, yes. So I lived in Ontario and I was tweaking it really bad, right? And of course, when you're a tweaker, I had a tweaker moment one day and I was like, you know what? I need a fence in front of my home so that, you know, I can keep all the tweakers out. So I built this fence that locks from the inside. And one night, we had another tweaker moment. We're like, hey, let's go for a walk. It's 2 a.m. So me and my tweaker buddy, we took a walk outside of the fence. Mind you, we left it open. And all of a sudden, we see two police officers coming, rolling by. And mind you, we're doing nothing wrong, just taking a normal 2 a.m. walk, right? So, of course, we freaked out, so we took off running. We took off running inside my fence. I shut the fence behind me. Me and my friends started running inside my pad. We fell to the ground, like on top of each other. I could hear the cops at the gate trying to open it. I don't know how they did it. They must have jumped over. By that time, we're inside my home. My homie runs up the wall like Spider-Man, goes into my attic, closes the door, and is up there just quiet as hell. Later on, he was like, Abraham, do you know you have eyeballs staring at you in the attic? I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah, man, I could have sworn Spider-Man was up there. I'm like, bro, that is crazy. I, on the other hand, ran through my home, back door, jumped the fence, went next door to my stepmom's house, knocking, Mom, let me in. The cops are looking for me. So she let me in. I ran into her bedroom, went under her bed, and I could hear the helicopters. I could hear the cops in the alley, vroom, vroom, looking for us. Needless to say, I didn't get arrested that night. I didn't get arrested. So those were the good old bad days.
Have you ever been arrested? I've been arrested. I spent the night in jail.
Okay. I've been arrested when I got a DUI one time, twice. Right? So this is crazy. I came from a family party and I got into it with some of my family members because they didn't like my jokes apparently. Because my brother and my cousin's husbands, as a young kid, they would tease me. You know, they would like make fun of me because I was a chubby kid, and we'd be swimming, you know, and they'd push me out of the pool and make my boobies all big, and like I'd be so embarrassed because I had like, you know, young man boobies, right? So for a 13-year-old, that's like horrific, right? So I was like, I'm older now, 25 years old. You know, I'm gonna, you know, make fun of them. So one of them bent over and I did the fart sound like, right? So everybody started laughing. So him and his brother decided they wanted to fight me. So this big scuffle started and I was like, you know what, I'm leaving. you know what? So I ended up leaving, and not to mention, I got a booty call. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'm out of here. I'm out of here. Right? I'm gonna go get this booty call. So I'm headed up from San Bernardino all the way down to Riverside to get this booty call. I run out of gas.
You ran out of gas to get some ass.
I ran out of gas to get some ass. Exactly. That's funny. So I went into like a Denny's and I asked them for like an empty gallon, and they gave me an empty gallon. I went and put gas in my car. And it was actually, you know how you go on the freeway, the on-ramp, and the freeway's going, that little section that's shaped like a triangle? My car was there facing into the freeway, like not even straight. I don't know how that happened. So I ended up getting gas into my little SUV. I took off, but I lost my cell phone. So a few hours later, I'm driving up and down the freeway like, where's my cell phone? Like an idiot. Idiot.
You thought this cell phone came out of the car?
It fell out. I don't know where.
And so you were driving looking for it?
Yes, because I couldn't call my booty call and say I got gas in my car. I'm on my way. So,
oh my God.
so I ended up getting pulled over. The cops pulled me over and they put me in the front seat. They didn't even handcuff me. They put me in the front seat and we go to the station. But before we get to the station, we stop to get donuts. So I'm like, hey, officer, I'll pay for your donuts if you let me go. They're like, no, yeah, we're going to have to take you in. But luckily, they parked my car on the side, and they were like, when you get out in 8 hours, you know, you can get your car back.
Nice.
Yeah, very nice of them. That was the first time. The second time...
Oh, goodness.
The second time I got a DUI and I was arrested, I was my brother's best man at his wedding, and I drank a little too much, and there that cell phone goes off again. Booty call. So I'm like, hey, bro, I gotta go, man. He was driving my car, right? And we took the bride and other guests. And so he throws the keys at my face, like, okay, you want to go leave. So I ended up driving with the headlights off, ended up in Pasadena. So they pulled me over and they took me in, and I just remember waking up with a sandwich. The breakfast they give you, my sandwich and my orange, and I was using it as a pillow. Like, it was just horrible, but those are the only 2 times that, but now I don't drink and drive. I don't drink, I'm totally against, driving plus drinking equals no thinking. That's my motto. So, thank God for Uber and Lyft. That's all I gotta say about that.
That's funny. So, you moved out to LA 8 years ago?
8 years ago from, Ontario, and I had just come out from being homeless.
Yeah, that was during your tweaker days.
That was during my tweaker days, yeah. So, yeah, about 10, 11 years ago, I moved out to Los Angeles for work, and I've been here ever since.
So, the first time that you used meth, like, how did that even happen? How did you even go through that run?
Okay, so I had this friend that worked with us, and she had started doing it, and she tried to get me to do it, and like I said, I was always really square in high school. I know you mentioned you were square.
Me too. I didn't have my first drink till I got to college. Like, my first shot was a shot of 151 in the dorm rooms of Washington State University. Go Cougs! But I'm sober now, so.
Yeah, like, I was so square that one time I accused my dad of smoking weed, and I was like, open your mouth. If it's green, I know you smoke weed. And needless to say, he opened his mouth and it wasn't green. And come to find out, he was doing harder stuff than weed. So anyways, this one friend, she brought crystal meth to my home. And at this time, she didn't have a Pookie. She had foil.
Okay.
So she smoked it at my place, and I was just like watching her, and I think I was smoking my weed or whatever. She threw it in the trash, and she left. And a few minutes later, curiosity killed the cat like a motherfucker. Because I went back into that trash, took that foil out, opened it up, seen that there was resin. I had seen how she had done it. She had a straw and a lighter, and I lit the bottom the way she did it. That first hit, Lila, was so euphoric. I felt like my brain just opened up. So I started calling my friends that I knew that used crystal meth. I was like, hey, I know why you do meth now, man. This stuff is great. So that was my first experience. Like, it was like the best feeling in the world. Like, I never wanted that feeling to end. Right. But that come down was the worst. Yeah. That was the worst, and that's what made me want to get more and more and continue to chase that high. And for about a good 5 to 7 years I was on crystal meth.
You know, when we talked on our drive to that comedy gig, it's really interesting because I never did meth, but I mean, I took a lot of Adderall and I convinced myself that, I was prescribed this. But when you describe the high of it and the feelings and the cleaning of your kitchen and starting projects and doing this, like, that was me on Adderall. And like, the first time I took it, the high was, I mean, it was insane. It was insane. And I just feel like I'm just so glad I ain't on that shit no more.
Right? I'm telling you, man, it was one of the darkest times of my life because I blocked so much out of it out. A lot of my friends were like, hey, remember, excuse me, remember when you did this or remember when you did that? I was like, really? I did that? I'm like, whoa, that's hard to believe. So I did some crazy stuff. I mean, I used to sleep in the gutter, in the ditch, in the gutter holes, you know, and there'd be fights down there, there'd be sex down there, everything down there, drugs, you know, there'd be killers down there hiding from the police. Like,
did you ever see a dead body?
Oh my gosh. Well, in my tweaker days, in living in the streets, no. But I did it when I used to pick up dead bodies for a mortuary transport company. I literally seen dead people every day. Dead ass. This business was alive and well.
Alive and well.
Well, it was dead business. Everybody was dying to get into it.
So how did you get into working for so you worked for the morgue?
I worked for a mortuary transport company that my buddy David Martinez had purchased, and at that time I was working at a rickshaw service for the Ontario International Airport. Me and my buddy started a rickshaw service from the bottom up, and the owner was a bad tweaker. He was a cokehead. And he was very abusive, so I was like, you know what, fuck this. So my friend was like, hey, come work for me. And I was like, bro, I ain't picking up no dead bodies. He was like, come on, man, just, you know, come in and you could do, what's that called, when they, dispatch. I could dispatch. Okay, I'll just dispatch for the dead bodies. I can do that. So he was like, well, how much do you want to get paid? And at that time I was like, well, give me $100 a day. He was like, you got it. So that's how I got into that business. And man, boy, it was crazy.
What was the craziest, what was one of the most memorable dead body picking experiences?
Well, there's a few, but one of the ones that I remember the most, there was a gentleman, he was about 80-something years old, and he lived in Yucca Valley. And for those of you that know Yucca Valley, it's a hill to get up to Yucca Valley. And so we get on top of the hill, we get to this estate, this huge ranch, and we walk in, and this old gentleman is laying on the floor. The coroner had just placed him on the floor to do their whatever they do, and so I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna go for this gentleman's legs because I didn't want to grab his upper torso. He had a bullet hole going through this side of his temple and coming out.
He committed suicide?
He committed suicide, and that's what they said. But with a lot of these things, you really don't know because these people have money. So, I mean, you never know what the case could be. So, supposedly he committed suicide. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna go for his legs when we transport him and put him on the gurney because I didn't want to go for his upper torso because the hole in his temple freaked me out. Excuse me. So I was a rookie. So the guy that had most experience, because it was a two-man call, went for his legs. I was like, fuck. So I had to go for his upper torso. I didn't want to touch him at all. Mind you, we wore nice suits, nice gloves, you know, the plastic, rubber gloves. I went for his wrist. I pick up his wrist, and as we go to put him on the gurney that we had lowered to the ground, his head flops back. Soon as his head flops back, blood just starts gushing out of the side of one of his holes like a water faucet, and it would not stop. So I'm like, shit, fuck, damn. So we put him on the gurney, and we put him in the back of the van. And since we were going downhill and he was head first, all of his blood was gushing into the back of the van. So we were like, fuck this motherfucker, god damn it. So I said, fuck this. We're gonna stop at Circle K, we're gonna get a bag, and we're gonna put it over this motherfucker's head because he's fucking up our van. So we stopped to do that, but luckily by then, it had gotten a blood clot and stopped bleeding.
Or coagulated?
But he still left a mess in our in our van, needless to say. But yeah, man, I've seen plenty of dead bodies. Like one time we picked up this 700+ pound man. He had been dead 2 weeks in his place of business, which was like an industrial area. He was defecating in a 5-gallon bucket. Urine, piss, everything you can think of was in there. Pizza boxes, newspapers everywhere. Like it was bad. No, it was bad. Like it was really bad. And by the time we got to him, he was really plumpy and just like, you know, just ready to just burst, right? So we take him to the mortuary. They decide that 2 weeks later, they decide that a casket is going to be too costly to bury him because he was huge. They were going to have to make an extra big coffin casket. So they called me out again to pick him up. Now, mind you, this time he's dead a month. He's even juicier than the first time we picked him up, and they had bagged him. Now, you know how when you go to the grocery store and you pick out the meat and then the blood just gushes to the bottom and you can see it there with the plastic? That's what this motherfucker was like, right? Luckily that day we had an inspector there. And I said, hey bro, we're not taking this body like this. We're gonna have to rebag this motherfucker. So we put him on a lift. Lifted him up in this like paper or plastic please. So we bagged him.
Paper plastic.
We bagged him right back up, right? And needless to say, we transported him. We even put Vicks in our nose the whole way. My head was out the window like a dog, just like, because it was just bad. The smell, I can't even explain the smell, but it was horrific. So we get to the crematory, and the guy proceeds to tell us that, yes, this guy's too big. He's not going to fit in the crematory or whatever, the oven. We're going to have to chop him up because if we put him in there all in one piece, he's so fat that he's going to explode.
Oh my God.
So,
dude, this is like, your life is like a real life Dexter, like these horror movies. Like, how is it for you watching horror films, having seen like real blood and real gush? Like, how do you, does the movies even compare? You know what, it still freaks me out. It still freaks me out. I don't like looking at gory things, and as a matter of fact, it's funny you asked that because I prayed about it. I was like, God, why am I doing this job? Why am I picking up these dead people? And then the answer came back to me. If anybody could do this, Abraham, if anybody's going to do this, Abraham, why not you? And I was like, oh, you're right. Why not me? Because, I mean, I just, have this way of working with people, and which reminds me, like that one time I was picking up a dead body, and I was on crystal meth at this time, and my boss didn't know it at the time, but that's why I was up all night. Like, I'll pick up the body. We went to this lady's home. She was like an older lady. She used to be a pilot. Her theme was gardening, and her family is telling me all this, right? Like, oh, she loved her garden. Her garden was her life. I was so on one that day that a thought came to my head. Like, you remember that TV show, That's So Raven? Mm-hmm. When you're like, excuse me, I keep burping up this Chipotle. I'm sorry. That Chipotle
so
was good.
it was bomb. We just had Chipotle right now, boy. I keep burping it up. Better this one than the other way, right? So the family's telling me, oh yes, she loved her garden, right? And I was on one really bad. If you guys know I was on one, right? A thought came to my head. Get one of her flowers from her head. And That's So Raven, I was like a little bubble popped in my head, like, and I see myself getting a flower from her garden. And we asked the family, would you like us to cover their face or leave it open on the way out? And they were like, no, leave it open, because they don't want to see their loved ones covered up like that. So we left it open. On the way out, I spotted the flower. It was a yellow daisy. I picked that flower, I put it on the side of her ear, and I was like, look at her. Doesn't she look like she's resting? They were like, oh my God, yes, oh, she looks so peaceful. I was like, yes. Now she can take part of her garden with her. And they were like, oh, yes, thank you so much. Yeah, it's so sweet. So, even being on meth, I, would do things that, my spirit or whatever would tell me to do, whether it was good or bad, I would still do it. So, yeah, I've seen some crazy stuff.
Sweet story, though.
Thank you.
But your partner wasn't happy with you.
My partner wasn't happy. He was like, dude, you're going to get us fired. Says the guy that would pick up dead bodies with the 12-pack in between the console. We literally would pick up dead bodies and be like, dude, are you hungry? Yeah, I'm hungry. Come on, let's go to KFC. We'd have somebody in the backyard. We'd be bumping Snoop Dogg, eating our chicken.
This is really interesting because it's like obviously this is a job that people do, but and you don't think about that. You don't think about when people die and then somebody has to pick up the body. So it's like really interesting the fact that you lived this life, to do that. It's so insane.
It is, because I would never do a job like that. I never because I was grossed out. Just like I used to think, my friend that bought the company, I used to be like, dude, what's your obsession with death? Like, do you have sex with these bodies? Like, what is it? Like, he was so into it, right? So for the right money, you're gonna do what you need to do, right? So I just like I said, I prayed about it, and some of these people would look at you like you're the Green Reaper, like you were coming to take their loved one to hell. Or some of them, we were there just to comfort them and make them feel comfortable. I was so compassionate with these people, whether I was on one or not, that I just gave them love and made them feel comfortable and made them feel like, their loved one was in good hands. So, I was really good at that, and we got a lot of good reports. I never had any bad reports. Oh my God, this guy was acting weird or anything like that, Another time I remember, we picked up this old lady, and she died on the toilet.
Oh my God.
She died of cardiac arrest. So basically she was pushing really hard, like she was straining so hard that her heart just gave out on her. No, seriously. Like, literally, can you imagine when you take a shit and it kills you? Like, literally, right? So we walk in, I remember seeing her on the toilet like this, and I remember her underwears. I was like, I am not pulling her underwears up or wiping her butt, bro. We're taking her like this. But by this time, rigor mortis had set in, and if you know what rigor mortis is like your body starts to get hard. So her legs were hard, and we took her off, and she was still in the sitting down position in the toilet, right? So I was like, bro, let's just wrap it up and take her like this. So yeah, we couldn't strap her down into the gurney, to keep her safe. And yeah, we just took her like that, and it's just things that you see that you get numb to it.
So most people that die was like natural causes. Did you ever? What was the suspicious activity that you felt sometimes?
Yes, most of them were already on hospice. They were in a convalescent home, or they died in the hospital, and they were mostly deaths that they were getting ready to pass away. But I remember seeing this one lady in particular. She was like maybe 350 pounds, and this one, when I think about it, it broke my heart because I felt when I walked in like there's some foul play going on in here.
You felt it.
I felt it. There was two gentlemen, and it kind of seemed like they had something going, and one was a neighbor. Anyhow, I could be wrong, but my That's So Raven was lit that day. So I walk in, and the lady is face down on the floor. When we moved her on her back, her glasses, she had big old glasses, were indented into her face. Like literally her glasses were indented, almost as if somebody had pushed her face into the ground to suffocate her. So that was pretty sad. And it hurt my heart to see that, because she had like a big old chubby cute like face, and it just was sad to see that she suffered. So that's the type of stuff that was hard for me. But you grow numb to it. You grow numb to it because you do it so much that you're like, oh, again, and eventually you're like, oh, another dead body, another one.
So how do you feel about death personally? Are you afraid to die?
I'm afraid to be buried 6 feet deep, and I'm afraid to get cremated. I don't know why those freak me out, just the thought of it, but I guess I would rather be buried like under a tree or in the dirt somewhere just like that. But I'm terrified. Just those thoughts terrify me. But what I'm scared is that I'm going to die a horrific death, because you can tell when some of these people died a horrific death, like if they were gasping for air, they died like, like they were really running out of breath. Some died peacefully, and we come and we close their eyes. Sometimes they open back up. So seeing all that, you get used to it, and eventually, that's going to be all us one day. But what scares me the most about death is the way that I'll die. Like, I just want to die sleeping. Wake up and I'm like, oh, not even wake up. Like, wake up and I'm dead. That's it. Like, that's what scares me the most, is the way I would die. Like the other day, like I could have gotten shot. and killed. And I imagined myself like sitting there with a bullet hole in my brain or my head and just like thinking about my son, my family. Like, no, this is not it. So it actually pissed me off when that guy did that. It pissed me off when that guy pulled a gun out on me because I thought of my son and my family, my friends, and I was like, this motherfucker could have shot me and taken away the yo.
Hey, you know, speaking of that, if he would have shot you, wouldn't have been on episode 11 of Small Talk.
Oh my God! And thank you so much. I told Lila Hart.
Yeah, episode 11 is very special.
And I'll tell you why. My dad passed away about 3 years ago, and he just came to visit us now with the little hummingbird. And I know that was him because we were talking about him, and boom, he pops up. But hummingbirds, 1111 are spiritual numbers that when he passed away, we started to see those numbers everywhere. He used to run a motel in Ensenada. He was the manager there, and there was a room 11 that he would go into to rest when he was tired. When he passed away, it was 11 p.m., around 11 p.m. So every time I see 11, it's like, you know, like I think about my dad. Like I've been to the hospital. The room I'm going to is room 11, you know, or I'm going through a tough situation or something's in my mind. I look up at the clock and it's 11:11 and I think about my dad. I'm like, thank you, Dad. It just signs like that let me know that everything's going to be okay. So I had been asking Lila since like I seen her first episode. I was like, hey, put me on your show. And she was just like, yeah, sure, no problem. And then I asked her again, Lila, I want to be on your 11th episode. Yeah, sure, no problem. And so here I am. So that's just proof right there, you know, that 1111 is my number.
No, I just want to say, you know, you're super supportive and so awesome. It's like such a joy to see you at the Comedy Store every Monday night because every time I see you, you're always so nice and we always take the best pictures together, which is awesome. By the way, I just want to give a shout out to Jay Singh, the dentist, who went on Kill Tony last night. Thank you for thanking me. That was so sweet. And keep doing comedy because you're awesome. And we'd always talk about that.
You know what's funny? We were actually on our way to do a show for Narcotics Anonymous.
Hey, because we're sober now.
Right? And Jay Singh was, we spoke about him on the way there because Lila gives the greatest advice. She gives like the best advice, and she was telling me the advice that she had given him. Okay, mind you, so we seen this guy perform last week on the Kill Tony. And it's very rare that you perform 1 week and then come back the next week and you kill. Like he bombed the first time. Lila gives him advice. Mind you, a lot of people give him advice, but what Lila told him resonated in his head. And when he went up yesterday on the Kill Tony, everybody that had seen him perform the week before knew that it was a complete 180 turn. And he went up there and he gave Lila a shout out.
That was so sweet. Thank you so much, Jay.
Man.
Jay Singh. Now look at that. And here's a little something for those of you that didn't listen or were at last week's episode. Last week you came up completely bombed. And this week you actually took the notes that we gave you. Stop saying you're a dentist, tell the truth, make fun of yourself, and it was a totally different thing. You were able to follow Malcolm's momentum.
I want to give big shout out to Lila right there. She gave me a ton of good advice.
Wow, look at that. Big things do come in small packages. A little advice from
big shout out to her.
Okay, very good. I love.
As soon as I seen him start performing, I was like, oh my God.
That's a Raven.
That's a Raven. Lila, that's Lila. And when he gave me the shout out, I was like, yup, I knew it.
You're a real one.
Awesome. Best advice right here, Lila Hart.
Best.
Thank
One thing I want to talk about too is like you said you got sober for your son, right?
Oh yeah. When I was in the streets, my son, you know, was raised with his mother and stepfather, and walking in the streets one day, my heart just was heavy, and I thought to myself, who's gonna be there for my son? Being on drugs and, you know, being in the streets, who's gonna be there when he gets older? And my heart hurt so bad that I started getting cleaned up. I started working at Kmart for seasonal work. I ended up somebody reached out to me and I went to manage a parking lot for them. Yeah, I got clean for 2 weeks from the get-go because my friend was like, hey, I need to go to these AA classes. You kind of look like me, pretend to be me, I'll give you money and I'll give you weed. I was like in the streets like, yeah, that's like that. So I got sober for 2 weeks to do this AA classes for him. And in the meantime, I got the Kmart job and I got this other job. And then I just kind of, you know, slowly but surely started working my way up to stop doing drugs and to prepare myself now for when my son turned 18. He's 20 years old now, and he would always be like, Dad, I'll come live with you when I graduate. And I'm like, no, that's when you're supposed to go live on your own. But needless to say, my big boy lives with me, and I love it. It's great. You know, since that day, my son, like, he's like still like a teenager to me. Like, I still call him Papa. He gets mad, like, don't call me Papa. You know, his name is Abraham. Shout out to my son, Abraham Boche. I love you. He's a great musician, by the way. His first instrument I bought him was a guitar and drums. And when I was in the streets, homeless, I didn't see him for those few years, and I think that broke his heart. And the only way that he felt close to me was to take instruments and become those instruments. So he's like the greatest guitarist and drummer. And I think it had a lot to do because, you know, I wasn't around him, and that was a way that he would feel connected with me. So yeah, my son was my inspiration to stop doing drugs. And all of you out there that have problems and have problems with doing any type of drug, you have to find that one thing that you care about, that one thing that is dear to your heart, and use that as your strength to heal yourself and clean yourself up, because you're loved, you know, whether you realize it or not. You know, if I was to not be here in my son's life, where would my son live or be, or what would he be doing? And that breaks my heart just to think about it. So yeah, thinking about my son got me out of the streets and doing ratchet things. Like, my friends would sell their vagina, they would sell their boobs, they would sell their penis, they would sell their butt.
If we were actually on TV, it'd be like, please, please, please. I love you. You're so funny.
They would sell their body parts, and literally, and I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. I ain't no hooker. I'll do that for free. Now, so I would do odd jobs like, you know, detailing cars, you know, recycling, you know, washing cars and stuff. I would do those types of things, you know. I lived in a 91 a 91 Cadillac DeVille. It was a mortuary limousine. It was burgundy with blue suede interior. And I remember one time I had a Yorkie, a little Yorkie. His name was Petunia, a little small Petunia. He was my buddy, and when I was homeless, he would follow me everywhere and then protect me, right? He thought it was a pit bull. So I remember one time we were dipping in my limousine, going to pick up my ladies to go to the reggae club. Excuse me, that Chipotle again. I ran a red light, and I was on one. Had a bottle of vodka, like I was drunk as hell. And I remember running this red light because I was so excited I was gonna go pick up my girls. And mind you, I was safe. It wasn't like, I knew that there was no cars coming. For those of you that know Ontario, it was Holt and Grove right there. So I was coming up Grove, crossing Holt, like totally no cars coming, right? So I ran it, and undercover police, boom, turns the lights on me, right? So I sobered up right away. So I pull over, and he's like, "Excuse me, sir. Why didn't you pull over? Why didn't you run the red light?" And I'm like, "To be honest with you, I didn't see you behind me. Like, I didn't know you were behind me, right? I totally wouldn't have ran it if I knew you were there, right?" So I recognized one of the officers, though. I recognized him from an accident that I had a few weeks, where somebody ran into the back of my limousine and fucked it all up. And I told him, I said, "Hey, I was just in this accident. You know, and I don't have insurance." And right away he was like, "Hey, you better get out of here. It's going to go worse for you." So I was like, okay. So I left, right? And I recognized him. And I don't know if his sergeant was there with him that day, but he was like, "What's going on?" So they were like, "Oh, you know what? That wasn't me. You know what? Just get back in your limousine, leave it parked right there. Don't drive it. Have somebody else come pick it up." Boy, as soon as they took off, I jumped back in my limousine, boop, dipped in it, busted a U-turn, and went to pick up my girls and went to the reggae club. Like, that limousine was popping. Like, I would do drugs in there, sex in there, go poop in there in a bucket. You know, it's like, you had to do what you had to do being homeless, right? And at least I had a limousine to live in at that time.
Well, you know what? You are so hilarious. You have so many freaking stories. You need to talk about this in your stand-up.
Right. No,
I just want to thank you so much for being on Small Talk today.
Thank you.
And you guys be sure to check them out. I'll have all these links down below.
Yo, yo, yo.
And pose for the picture really quick. Perfect. Awesome.
You were so great.